name's Mike Goodman. I serve on the board of directors. I was just given perhaps the most challenging task of my career when we asked Mike how to introduce him. He said, well, it only took the father 7 days or 7 words to introduce a son, so it shouldn't take much more than that. I'm not the father. We're so great. I'm so grateful. We're so grateful to have Mike with us today. I can give you a lot of formalities. He's got a PhD. He's taught hundreds of thousands of individuals and had a profound impact on so many at BYU and throughout the church and throughout the world. To be brief, I first saw Mike way before he knew I existed in the universe, when I was a brand new church educator, 37 years ago. Man, I'm old. And I sat at his feet as he taught a class, and I thought to myself, when I grow up, I want to be like him. I've sought to model my career after the Savior. I'm a religious educator. But if there's a mortal that has modeled how I want to do it, it's Mike. And I'm grateful to have him here, and I'll turn the time over to him.
Is this working? You can hear? Can I stick I probably won't look at them, but I kind of like to have them there just in case. One of my major rules of life is, in as much as you can, never have anything between you and the people you were talking to. So, this is kind of what I call the rammy-umptum of life. So if I'm okay down here, if you can see, I'm tall enough, hopefully. I feel more comfortable down here than up there, especially on some of the topic we're going to talk about today. So I want to start with part of a parable of the Savior. And I can screw up technology really easy, so I'm always nervous about. But I did, in case I couldn't get it on the scriptures, took a screenshot. My grandchildren taught me about screenshots, which was a whole education. I said, you could really do that. All right, so when I do this, I've done this many, many times, and unless somebody's heard me do it before, they usually don't figure it out. So I'm just going to read a couple of verses from the first of this parable, and I want you to tell me you think. What are all the differences between these two men? Okay, this is a parable about two men. So here it is. There was a certain rich man which was clothed in purple and fine linen and fared sumptuously every day. And there was a certain beggar named Lazarus, which was laid at his gate full of sores, and desiring to be fed with the crumbs which fell from the rich man's table. Moreover, the dogs came and licked his sores. So those are our 3 verses that introduce these two men. So what are the differences that Jesus tells us there are between these two men? One is rich, one is poor. If I engaged in a big conversation here. One has enough the other is hungry just for a crumb. Okay? One is dressed beautifully, well, the other's in rags. Okay? One is healthy, one is sick. Those are the ones I always get. Occasionally I'll get one's outside the gate and one's inside. That's a good insight. But the biggest difference is one has a name and the other doesn't. And of the two men, who did Jesus give the identity, the name to? He gave it to the poor man. He gave it to the beggar, not the rich man. And I've loved that parable, that once that insight hit me, everybody has a name. And usually we think of the wealthy, you can name them all. But the poor, the sick, are often the mass. So as we talk today, I don't like the letters LGBTQ, and I'm not really a fan of the letters LDS. They are letters. We use them. We are a letter-worshiping nation. Okay, we just love letters. Half the time I have no idea what they are. I'll get a text from my grandchildren after I but what do these letters mean? Okay. We want to put a face and an identity. Jesus gave Lazarus a name. So when I think of same-sex attraction, I'm not thinking of letters. I'm thinking of my father. I'm thinking of a favorite uncle who died of AIDS in the very beginning of it. I'm thinking of a companion I had for 4 months. Whoever has a companion for 4 months? Who had a number of serious conversations with me and whom I love deeply. I'm thinking of a very, very close friend I just saw a few days ago. They are faces, they are names, and in all conversations when we deal with issues that you deal with, we have to remember these are individuals. And also on the church side, they are individuals, they are people. And that really has helped me stay anchored as, this issue of same-sex attraction has been a part of my life since I was born. I didn't know it was a part of my life in the early years, and I will tell you that story. I've been asked to tell that story. Just want that idea. We're always dealing with people, individuals, lives. Now I'm going to share a little, and then I'll tell you a story. A little Chinese wisdom. Now the Chinese aren't unique in this. The idea of the circle and the square is in almost all societies, and you're going to see it. So for the Chinese, the heavens are circle. They move. Now I know we're doing the real moving, but it looks, the heavens circle. And the earth is square. It's stable. It doesn't move. And for a society to be balanced and healthy, an organization, whatever, but particularly a society, some things need to move. Some things need to change. And some things need to stay stable. They need to stay the same. If you have all circle, all movement, you get chaos and confusion in society. If you have all square, no movement, you get stagnation and irrelevancy in society. And part of the challenge we all have to face, and that we work with, part of what the LDS, I use the letters? Okay. I don't know what I am anymore. I used to be a Mormon, but okay. And it's just too long to say I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I may become a Catholic just because it's easier to say. Okay. Anyway, so now I got off track here. It's a challenge for the church, for you, for me, who have all my life dealt with these issues, to know how much circle do we put into the issues that we face. And I'm talking about family issues. My wife and I would never have dreamed of using the pill, birth control. And so there have been 2 miraculous births in the history of the world. Jesus and my son, okay? We have no idea how we got here, right? So there is movement, there needs to be movement. And there are stability, and there needs to be stability. And in a certain sense, the proclamation on the family becomes for members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, an attempt at trying to understand what is movable and what is not movable. And even in there, things and policies change and adapt. And I'm glad I don't have to make those decisions. I don't know how I would make those decisions. But just being aware of that dynamic. You've all seen Fiddler on the Roof. Fiddler on the Roof, I pulled a little thing out of it, is really a story of circle and square dilemmas. And how you deal with that. And remember, the first daughter's marriage, we just want your permission to marry. We've already agreed. You know what I'm talking about? And he wrestles with it. On the other hand, and he's okay. Second daughter, we don't want your permission. We're going to do it anyway. We want your blessing. And he wrestles with that. Third daughter, no permission, no blessing, gets married to a Christian. And just comes and says, we just want your acceptance. And he has this little dialogue. Havilah says, Papa, at least listen to me. Papa, I beg you. And he says in his mind, can I deny everything I believe in? On the other hand, can I deny my own daughter? On the other hand, how can I turn my back on my faith? My people. And then a really important line. If I try and bend that far, I'll break. On the other hand, now do you understand that dilemma? I'm sure you all understand that dilemma. I've been wrestling with that dilemma 75 years, even when I didn't know I was wrestling with that dilemma, till age 17. And then he finally says, no, there is no other hand. And those are really difficult challenges and decisions, and to know where that goes. You know, there's a line from a play, a Greek play from Sophocles, where he says, there are laws of reverence which no amount of forgetfulness can ever put to sleep. And God through these is great and grows not old. So in multiple issues and areas of our lives, we're trying to connect and find, can this circle so we are relevant? Is this necessary to stay stable and unchanged so? Because it is one of those laws of immutability. And I wish I had I wish I knew how to deal with it. Always. My mind accepts as valid the proclamation on the family. My heart is with my father and my uncle and my friend and my companion and dozens of other people I have met through my life and talked to who wrestle with the things that this group is wrestling with. So let me just relate my story a little bit, and I hope there'll be something that will be of meaning against the backdrop of They have a name, and we're dealing with circle and square issues. So my father, I did not know my father growing up. I was 1 year old when my father and mother were divorced. My father grew up in a very active pioneer ancestry. He was very proud of his pioneer ancestors. Some of the first people to join the church in Italy will immigrate, Nauvoo pioneers. He grew up in Ogden, 1930s, 1940s. Things were a little different in these issues in the 1930s and 40s and 50s and 60s and 70s. He's going to make three choices in his life related to these issues. There's a whole chapter, 2 Nephi chapter 2, where Lehi divides everything on the planet into two categories. Things that act and things that are acted upon. And he says, man acts. He's not acted upon. He's a being who acts. He makes choices. So my father's going to make three choices. As he's growing up in a standard LDS home, he has same-sex attraction. Now, this is the 1930s. He doesn't even really understand what's going on inside of him. And maybe in the letter category, my father would have been considered B in the beginning. And later on, he's going to be G. Okay, does that make sense? Right. There are some people that don't even want that transition to be possible. Okay. But my father would say that's probably his life. The first choice he makes is, as these emotions and feelings and attractions surface in his life, is, I will live a perfect LDS life. I am going to do it all correctly and right, regardless of what is in the battles he's beginning to fight and doesn't even understand. I'm going to live. That's his first. I'm going to act. This is how I'm going to act. He went on a mission. The war is coming. This is the early 1940s. He served an honorable mission. He came home from his mission. He knew my mother from high school. My mother is in a state of rebellion. She wants to find out what's in the great and spacious building. Okay? And San Francisco was a good place to look at what was in those days. So she's in San Francisco, living her life, coming home from time to time. My father wanted to marry her. He was attracted to her. She didn't want to get married, but he was really persuasive. And so she said, all right, I'll marry you, Frank, because there's a name, right? I'll marry you under two conditions. One, I get to live my life the way I want to. She didn't particularly want to be an active LDS person. And two, we don't tell anybody we're married. So they tried to get secretly married in Salt Lake so Ogden wouldn't know, but it came out in the newspaper, and so it was out anyway. Okay? My father is drafted. They go to San Francisco. My mother had relatives in San Francisco, and she's living in San Francisco. My father's doing boot camp and other things ready to go. And my mother meets somebody, a lieutenant at the PX that she thinks she's in love with, and just before he is shipped overseas, she comes to my father and she says, I think I want a divorce. I think I'm in love with another person. Now this is a blow to my father who's going into combat. And he says, all right, Norma, I will give you one, but he's devastated. And it's a blow to him. And as he's ready to give her the divorce papers, she says, well, it's a war. We don't know how anything is going to be. Let's just let things stay the way they are for now. And we'll decide when you come home. My father talks about sailing into the Pacific to fight in the Philippines, going under the Golden Gate Bridge, not knowing what his future would be, what his wife was thinking, what he'd come home to, whether he would survive. That's how he goes. Now, things happened to my father in the war that he would never talk about. And my father talked to me about everything eventually. Never those experiences. And whatever combination of things that we still are trying to find and wrestle with that creates same-sex attraction, genderist situations, whether we talk about biology, we talk about genetics, we talk about environment, my father would add experiences. And whatever happens in the war, when he comes back, it is his attraction, his gayness is rising. But my mother wants to stay married to him. And his first decision is holding, I will live the gospel perfectly. And in the back of his mind, he's saying, and God will change it. God will change it. God will take it away. My faith, my church I will will it through my activity and my faith, and I will will it away. He goes to medical school, and he says, I have got to get my wife online in the church. So he says, I want you to read the Book of Mormon. I don't want to read the Book of Mormon, my mother says. Well, then I will read it to you. And he would come home from work and from medical school, and my mother would sit there like this. And my father would read it to her. Well, my mother was a very intelligent woman. And after a while, it got interesting to her. You get past Isaiah, you know. And so she would look forward to it. But she would never tell him. And eventually, she has a profound experience with God one night when my father challenged her to ask God. He won't tell me. You're too narrow-minded to try, Norma. My mother thought she was very broad-minded. And I don't know what happened in the room that night. But my mother comes out absolutely born again, different, new. She's committed. She's going straight forward. My father has accomplished the first great goal of his life, to get my mother committed. My sisters are born. I got to have a temple marriage. He marries my mother in the temple. Then I am born. He starts a practice in Southern California. And begins to sing. He was a beautiful voice in a Broadway musical, and there he meets a gay young man. And all his activity and all his efforts and all his desires in that first decision have not taken it away. It's there. And the draw is so strong. And it's tearing him apart. You know, now in today's world, some might say, well, your father should never have married your mother anyway. He should have divorced when he should have been true to his identity. And I say, I understand that. But that means I'm not here. Doesn't it? These are complex things on both sides. It's a complex situation. And somebody would say, well, Mormon doctrine says you would have been born to another family. You would have come another way. And I say, I like me. I don't want another father. I love my father. I don't want to come through some other way. But if he had done that, I'm not here, my children aren't here, there's a flow of generations. So I'm grateful for his first choice. Now he makes a second choice. He's going to make a second choice of his life. He is torn apart with this situation. He can't tell my mother. This is the early 1950s. So my father agonizes, and my mother doesn't know what's the matter with him. He brought her the gospel. The sun rises and sets on my father from my mother. And she prays, because she believes in prayer now, deeply. And God tells her, this is what is troubling Frank. He tells her. And my mother talks to him one night after he comes back from the musical. And now it's out. And they're wrestling with it. My grandfather calls my mother and says, don't worry, Norma, I'll talk to my son. I'll straighten this out. My mother's brother, who had worked with gay men in the military, said to my mother, Norma, it's not that easy. It's not going to go away. You'll have to learn to deal with it, the two of you. And a conversation with your father-in-law and your husband is not going to take this away. My mother said to my father, because the sun rises and sets on him, we'll work it out, Frank. You have 3 children. I just need you to make me 2 promises. 1, you'll be a good father. And 2, you'll be a good member of the church. And my father said, I can do one of them. Sad moment. I can do one of them. So eventually he leaves. He makes the second decision of his life. I will be true to my identity, I guess we would maybe say at this time. At this time, I can't be a good Latter-day Saint, and I will be a detriment to my children, he thinks. Now, that's a hard thing to ask, I guess. That's kind of what's not just the LDS Church, the Catholics, Muslims, a lot of religions basically say, we're asking you to live a celibate life, or however it works out. It's easier for the Catholics to ask that of their members than the latter LDS people. The Pope can say, well, I do it for religious purposes. I'm celibate. All my cardinals, all my priests. The Orthodox can say it. But our highest value is family. Makes it a little harder for an LDS member to deal with that. And so my father makes that second choice. I will choose the gay life. A divorce is granted. My mother would never tell us the reason for the divorce. If we ever asked about our father, who did not engage with us growing up, my father told me later, I thought I would be a detriment to you. That's a sad statement. My mother said, we will remember only the good your father did to us. He brought us our faith. I saw my father one day a year, growing up, usually. Not a lot. He would send us a check for our birthdays. And I was 17, went to BYU as a young freshman, and I just felt what I call the coming near moment. Joseph's 20 years separated from his brothers, and when he knows who they are, they don't know. I love the words when he tells them who he is. And he says these words, "Come near to me. Come near to me." And the next sentence, "and they came near." So in a sense, the Lord is telling me, Mike, you need to say to your father, I know he's not been in your life. I know he left your family. You need to say, come near to me. So I started going up to Salt Lake to see my father from BYU. My mother is a little bit nervous. She's afraid I'm going to see something because my father has a partner now. They're not married, he's got a partner. I used to wonder why their house was the only house in the neighborhood that had a fence in the front yard. I understood why later. Right? This is the 1960s, and they're hiding behind the fence. So my mother told my sister, who had been informed by a neighbor of the situation with my parents, much to my mother's distress, you better tell Mike what's going on because I don't want him to see something that will distress him. He's engaging with his father. So my sister told me. And it made no difference. God essentially came to me, which is maybe the only takeaway you have here is, my Father in heaven said to me, not in so many words, but Michael, you don't have to judge your father or his partner. You don't have to judge. I'll do all the judging. I'll do the judging. You don't have to. You just love them. That's it. I didn't have to choose between faith and father. Who wants to force a choice, church or child, on somebody? What a terrible choice to have somebody have to make. I didn't have to make the choice. Faith, my father didn't force that on me. Right? He didn't come with an agenda. I didn't come with an agenda. I just was told, just love this man. And I loved both of them. Now, my father didn't know I knew. I engaged all that year. I went on a mission. Just before my mission, I spent the last week with him and Kay, his partner. Went on a mission. Elder Packer interviews me halfway through the interview, or early in the interview. He says, what about your father? I'm writing to my mother. I said, well, my parents have been divorced. I didn't grow up with my father. He said, are you writing your father? I said, I occasionally write your father every week. And so I wrote my father every week. Elder Packer told me to do that. And when I got home, I got married, and I wanted my father to come. I wouldn't have minded if his partner came. I knew they wouldn't have an agenda, I was in my space, and I wouldn't embarrass or say anything when I was in their space. He used to have big parties, and all his friends would come. I would be there, He came and he sang at the wedding. Now, on the way up, maybe the most painful moment of my life, with my father. We drove up to Canada. My wife was Canadian in the middle of the night. In the middle of the night, he was talking seriously to me. And he said this to me. He said, Michael, on Wednesday you will be married. Don't ever do anything to jeopardize the marriage you are going to have with Laurie and the faith that will sustain you on your journey. And I knew he was second guessing, he was second thinking that second decision. And so I said to him, Dad, I know why you and Mom were divorced. I know why. Now, he didn't know I knew, and that I'd known for years. And he said, don't I disgust you? And I began to just weep. And I pulled the car over the side of the road. It's the middle of the night, somewhere in Montana. And we just wept and wept and wept together. I said, no, Dad. What? The only emotion I have in my heart for you is love. I don't have to judge this. That's not my role. I will always love you. Now, that impact, he began to think. And his partner began to think. I was married. We included my dad in everything as the kids, Christmas, Thanksgiving, birthdays, trick-or-treating. He didn't get the joys of a father, but I wanted to make sure he got the joys of a grandfather. And now he's ready for the third decision in his life. He's going to act again because he's a being that acts. And he and Kay both decide we're going to choose faith and family. We're going back. And they split. Carl eventually marries, has children. I don't know how that turns out. I tried, I didn't stay as close in contact with him as my dad. I'd ask him about him sometimes. He said, well, he's got teenage kids. My father never married. My mother never remarried. Now, it was a hard road back. He had to change everything. He gave up drinking. What was wonderful was he went back to church. Thank heaven he had a wonderful ward that embraced him. Of course, they didn't know all the background. Embraced him. His friends, his gay friends, supported him. They didn't say, what are you doing? They supported him. You want faith and family? We understand that. Okay? We understand that. They supported him. Smoking was the hardest thing to give up. Terrible, that's a whole other story. Finally masters that. He wanted that temple recommend. He wanted that temple recommend. And I'm working, I'm trying to encourage him, everything. One time he said, Mike, why? Why did I have this? Why? Why would God do this? And I said, Dad, we can't go down that rabbit hole. You can't. Everybody in the earth could ask, why? Why am I born here with greater blessings or greater challenges? Why we can't go down? We can't go there. There's no answer to that question for anybody. We deal with life as life has been given to us as best we can. One of his last great challenges was going to the bishop. He felt, I need to confess. Another fear of these things aren't around anymore. He said to me, Mike, what if I lose my job? He was a teacher. What if my bishop calls the district and I get fired? You know, sometimes when I talk to other members of the church who they just don't understand some of the challenges and pressures that used to be, and in a certain sense still are. I said, well, Dad, I don't think the bishop's going to do that. I don't know what he'll do. It took a lot of courage to go in and talk to that bishop. The bishop is wonderful, understanding. He gets that recommend. He serves a mission on Temple Square. He serves in the temple. Later in his life, he came to me, well, I'll just conclude this. I don't know what time I was supposed to stop here. I don't know. He said to me once, Mike, I can live the life of my faith. I've made all the changes. I've done everything I can. But in my heart, in my mind, the attraction is still there. It's still there. What do I do? I said, Dad, you have done everything you can. You have done everything you can. And you just put it in God's hands, and it may not be in this life, but in the next life. He will take care of it in his own wisdom and in his own manner and in his own way. I was raised by my mother on the words, put it in the Lord's hands and everything will be all right. If you have faith as a mustard seed, you can move a mountain. That verse used to scare me because I thought, I have no faith. I can't move an anthill, let alone a mountain. Because I read it literally. I finally realized it's figurative, Mike. With a little faith, you can overcome any obstacle. That's what Jesus is saying. So my father, I said, put it in his hands. Now, my father died 16 years ago. He died 1 year before my wife died. And maybe the last, hopefully helpful thing I would say to you is what happens after his death. My father passed away. We all mourned for him. My wife passed away the next year. Now, grief does very interesting things to you, to the soul and to our faith. I just wanted my wife to come back to me and tell me, I still love you, Mike. And I'm here. There is a hereafter. I say, I believe, Lord. Help my unbelief. I just want to know. Please send Laurie back in a dream to me. Just so she'll tell me. She still loves me, and I'm still hers. And so it's not my wife that comes back to me in a dream. Who comes back to me? My father. I was not expecting him. I was not worried about him. He was fine. I wasn't worried about him. And my father didn't say anything when he came back. He just stood there looking down at me with this radiantly happy, joyful face, smiling. I can't imagine a human face radiating that joy. I can't imagine it. I have never seen in mortality a human face with greater joy than my father's face. Didn't say anything. He just looked at me and smiled, and then slowly turned and walked away. And I woke up. I can still see that face. And to me, it said a number of things. It said, number one, you were right, Mike. God has his ways, and I'm fine. I'm not carrying what my father would have called, it's probably not politically correct now, but what my father called my burden. It's gone. It also said, I lived the last decades and years of my life in the faith I grew up in. I'm grateful I made the third choice. And it said, God is in the business of joy and happiness. And ultimately, that's where he's going to get us all, by whatever route, by whatever road we go. He's going to get us there. And I believe that with all my heart. On his mission, my father had a very interesting experience in the middle of the night one night. He was in the bedroom, and the other room, the door was open, and a light was coming in the other room. But he said the light wasn't going through the doorway. It stopped at the doorway. Just stopped. He said, I looked at it for the longest time, wondering what could cause that. And felt an invitation to go in and see what was in the other room. But he said, I was somewhat afraid. So I just stood there and looked at that light blocked at the doorway. And eventually turned over and went to sleep. He always said, I wonder what I would have seen if I'd gone through that doorway. Well, he did go through the doorway eventually. And I have no worries, no fears, no anxieties about my father or my uncle or my companion or my dear friend who's alive now or for many other people. It's a hard road to walk. And I don't know if what I've said is of value or help to anybody, but may your choices in life bring you joy. God is in the business of joy. He's going to get us there eventually. We just have to sometimes put it in his hands. And everything will come out right. And I bear that witness in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.